this evening. We have so the evacuation procedure. I think as there's no members of the public here. Do I need to read out? Everybody's very familiar with the procedure. Apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Clues, Riley, Reary, Jackson, Phillips, and Steve Stewart. Substituting in that order are Councillor Jens, Smith, Farrow, Chapman, Derby, and Osborne. And I've also got an apology from Councillor Simpson, who is running a few minutes late, but he is coming. I think that's the apologies. So thank you very much and welcome to those people that are substituting. Item 3 is disclosable pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Before I go on forward, in item 4, public participation, I'm going to first of all, I gather Councillor Hayden Phillips is in hospital. Also, Councillor Riley is in hospital. So I'll pass on our thoughts and wishes to them for a speedy recovery. And I'm also going to say thank you to Dorothy Barrett, because it's her last executive meeting, I think, before she retires. So thanks very much for your very long service, Dorothy, and we wish you all well in your retirement. Thank you very much.
How well she looks. As well as she looks.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 4 now. No question. Item number 5 is the minutes of the executive meeting held on the 16th and the 27th of February. Can I move by Councillor Ridley, seconded by Councillor Simmons? All those in favour? Thank you very much. Item number 6 is biodiversity. So following consideration of the Sustainability Working Party and the Community and Environment Board, the report asks this for approval for the Borough Council's Biodiversity Report 2026. The Council is under a new duty to publish a report at least every 5 years on actions taken to conserve and enhance biodiversity, and this is the Council's first report under this duty. So, has anybody got any comments, queries, questions? No, you have an interest. Same as me. So I'll move it from the chair then. Seconded by Councillor Watson, the Pinnock. All those in favour? Thank you. So item number 7 is the procurement strategy for 2026 to 2030. Report suggests a revised procurement strategy for the council reflecting the changes brought about the Procurement Act of 2023. The draft strategy sets out principles that will be used by the council in procurement exercises and also provides a modern slavery statement as required by law. Comments, queries, Councillor Barnes.
No comments on the actual detail of the report, but I think the recommendation has got a couple of typos in it. I think item B should be referred to Appendix 2 and item C should be referred to Appendix 3 because there is no Appendix 4.
Well spotted, Councillor Browning.
Thank you.
Councillor Watson.
Yeah, similar kind of thing. Just the page numbering on the first few pages is wrong. It's 7 of 5 and things like that. So just needs looking at. But the point I wanted to make though was on page before I know the page is wrong, 7 of 6, should be 6 of 7 on the review. It says the review date is 2030. I've also said this is a report from, or this is from 26 to 30. Just seems like a big gap. I'd expect to see March 2030 or spring or autumn, something, rather than a whole year. So I think it might be worth being a bit clearer when that actual review is rather than a 12-month period.
Should we say March?
Yeah, 4-year anniversary. Yeah, thank you. Okay, with those little tweaks, I'll move it from the chair, seconded by Councillor Simmons. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item number 8 is in Corporate Plan 2023-2027 annual refresh. As members will be aware, Council adopted the Corporate Plan for the term of this Council in 2023. The plan is subject to an annual refresh, and the changes set out this refresh set out in the appendix to the report. Given the current LGR timetable, it is likely that this Council term will last until 2028, and therefore the report suggests extending the term of the plan accordingly. Finally, the Council is required by law to set a number of equality objectives, and the Council's revised objectives are set out in the report. The objectives relate to how we deliver our services, how we engage with residents, and how we work with our staff. Anybody got any comment? Councillor Ripley.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, obviously our priority is safe, livable, locally focused communities, our strategic aims. Our policies on this, I've always thought were excellent. Obviously it fits in with all our CCTV, everything else. But there was an incident that happened just before Christmas I was most concerned about, and I hope to raise it at Safer Sub. So it's around about policy action, about how we monitor how our policies are working. Words are all well and good, but it's the actual actions and the outcomes that I feel that we need to monitor. And how do we go about monitoring them? Have we got a flag system? Is there something that we can initiate on various things, or perhaps I can be advised on that going forward?
Chief Exec.
So there's a number of phases. One is service plans for each division. Each division has their service plan that's more operational. We do bring a performance report, which is on the agenda, that gives a narrative of how we're doing against those policies. And you'll also see, obviously, we're increasing the number of KPIs that we'll be reporting to you next financial year. So hopefully between those, it will pick up the point that you raised. But every performance report sort of asks members to raise any other issues that isn't directly updated. It's a very large document, the narrative one in particular, as it is. But for us to do absolutely every line, it's twice as big. So if there's anything not in the performance report, then you're invited to flag them.
Councillor Simmons.
Yeah, in a similar way, on page 135 of 229, we've got, obviously we're reviewing the local plan, so to make sure we've got an up-to-date local plan. However, on here it's got including Greenbelt review, which we know is almost irrelevant, really, given the recent changes to government policy. So when we talk about protecting rurality, I think we need to have some other comments in there about how we look to do that, and how we look to lobby and activate our MP and other areas that where we can, or maybe look at joining with other councils to maybe look at making a legal challenge where developers are not being pushed, where this council has granted between 5,000 and 6,000 planning permissions. But we're in a position where we're vulnerable because of the new revisions to the NPPF, and to the recent legislation that's due to start this Thursday. So I think we're really at risk. And actually, one of those things, so some of the things in there about our priorities, about protected rurality, I think are at risk. And I think we need to strengthen that.
Councillor Ridley.
Completely agree with that. Obviously, there's the rural and natural heritage, our farmsteads, which we have a policy on now. And also various things like our civic award scheme. I know that the civic award scheme is going to be done through our forward planning team, but our forward planning team are under so much pressure at the minute. I don't see how that can be a viable thing to happen. So our rurality, again, it's going to be sort of be time pressure for our forward planning team. But again, it's how we measure it and how we go ahead and how we can protect it, because there is even more coming forward that will be under threat with the new local plan.
So through you, Chair, yeah, I absolutely agree. In terms of the green belt, I'm not sure how you protect the rurality with the green belt, given the fundamental change that's taking place there. I suppose our point is that we need to look at a wider definition of rurality, so that we've often equated protecting rurality with protecting green belt, and I think that link is probably loosened at the very least, if not slashed to smithereens. And so therefore perhaps we do need to look at wildness rurality, just land use designation. So yeah, perhaps we'll pick that up. Then maybe the policies in the local plan, for example, around what a village feels like, even if it's a slightly bigger village than it was 5 years ago, because it's had planning permissions in terms of design, sort of, treatment of edges and that sort of stuff with entries into villages and that's it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I've got Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Joe. I agree with what Obi said, but as far as the comments on the chief executive concerned, again, I would have had more confidence had the government not on the 26th of this month decided that authorities such as ours do not have the competency to determine applications for for more than 150 houses. So the government's latest change is that we cannot make a decision on housing applications for greater than 150 units. How are we going to protect rurality? We can't even do that. What a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with, you won't be surprised to hear, with all the comments that have been made. And we're sort of merging into the next item on the agenda as well, because it's all to do with planning. And this is this dictatorship by this government. They are riding roughshod over planning authorities. They are, they are removing the rurality of boroughs like North Warwickshire by the grey belt policy. As Councillor Simpson has just told, any development over 150 dwellings now is going to be referred to the Secretary of State to decide. We shouldn't forget, should we, that the government want 90% of all applications determined by officers as well. Another huge erosion to democracy. And now they're, as I say, we're merging into the next item on the agenda, but we might as well, while we're at it, this spatial strategy. So that they're just, well, as I say, telling us now to have this is regional government again with the spatial strategies, etc., and it's just not right. This is so anti-democratic. It's just wrong. So you won't hear any arguments from me. Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I mean, as you mentioned, I was going to actually raise it on the next item around the spatial development, because I do think it's a broad conversation, and I think we should be writing to our MP asking for help and support around this, because it is exactly as everyone's articulated. We've had it by almost succession. We've had the attack on the green belt, redefining it as grey belt as part of the national planning framework. And as Councillor Simpson just said, last week got a note saying any housing development over 150 houses on grey belt that you are you're inclined to refuse, you need to refer to us. Okay, if you approve them, you're allowed to approve as much as you like. But if you want to refuse it, we're not going to let you. The Secretary of State's going to take it over, and basically, as we've seen on Wharton and places like that, they're going to give permission. So I'd like to request if we could, as an authority, a planning authority, write to our MP and say, look, this is anti-democratic. It's an attack on the Greenbelt, and at what point will it stop?
Okay.
So Chair, so there is a unless there will be drafted following Councillor Simmons's question to council, and we're happy to widen it to include those points as well. And it was darkened in route, but I was at a conference with the chief planner today where they said they're also going to be issuing a direction where commercial development of a certain size that is about to be refused will also be referred to the Secretary of State. So I'm happy to add that to the letter if you wish.
Well, what's the point? You know, honestly, what is the point? They're not going to pay any attention to it, what anybody says.
No, I mean, go on, Councillor Osborne, Borough.
Yeah, just my comments listening to the conversations we've heard, and it really is taking the democracy away from local communities. What is the point of engaging with local communities to get their views on things when their views aren't going to really matter? It's already going to be decided by somebody else. I thought the whole point of doing the unitaries and getting decisions back towards the people, well, it seems to be going further away to me, not closer to. This is sort of planning by tick boxes. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, you're opening it up, Councillor Osborne, and everything. I have to say, everything this government are doing presently around local authorities is undemocratic. It's very dictatorial. Whether you talk about LGR or planning, there is no consultation. There is no consultation with local authorities that they listen to. There is certainly no consultation with members of the public. They are clearly hell bent on destroying this country. All our rural areas, they are destroying democracy, and at the same time, driving this country into the ground economically as well. And it's wrong. I share Councillor Simpson's frustration. All we can do is write letters. Whether it will make any difference, I share, as I say, Councillor Simpson's cynicism as to whether it make any difference. Probably not. But you never know. You never know. Our MP might actually go against our own government for a change. Again, I would doubt it. But if we point out in this letter that our MP did say in her leaflets prior to the election that she was going to protect the Greenbelt, etc., you never know. She might be true to her word and see if we can get any sense out of her to lobby the government on our behalf. Now, as you say, whether the government listen, I doubt it, because, as I say, they're hell bent on destroying local government, democracy, and ultimately the country. But there we go. We have the report in front of us. So with the amendment, with writing another letter, I'll move that from the chair, seconded by Councillor Osborne. Thank you. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Item number 10 is the spatial development strategies and foundations.
Item 9.
I do apologise. Yes.
So keen to get back.
So excited. Yes. Item number 9 is the local reorganisation consultation. So members will be aware that the government is currently consulting on the two options for local government reorganisation in Warwickshire and elsewhere. This consultation closes on Thursday. Sorry. The report suggests delegated powers to finalise and submit this council's response to this consultation be given to the chief exec in consultation with the local organisation member working group. The council is also a named consultee on the consultations regarding a number of other LGR areas. The report suggests that LGR in those areas is a matter for those councils, residents and other stakeholders in those areas, and it would therefore be inappropriate for the council to respond. Any comments? Councillor Durbix.
This is one from Councillor Reary. Will the member working group continue throughout the process? That's a member decision, but yes, I'd anticipated that they would. Yeah,
I think so, yeah,
it's
absolutely.
worth checking these things.
Yeah,
When will the working group see the draft response? This is
The draft was sent out on Friday.
With the option of discussing it tonight if need be, or comments in. It follows very closely the business case. In fact, it's called for by those that run the business case. So it's a very consistent in terms of what you've seen before. Not suddenly deciding to switch side or for anything else.
Councillor Barney.
Just on that, I was just going to say I've reviewed the draft and I'm perfectly fine to submit it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chair. I sort of take two views with this on to the extent of question 6 and 27. Here, 5, 6 and 7. To what extent do I agree the post has been informed by local views and local needs? Well, given that this authority and our partners will engage with it, this is our preferred view, then clearly, to an extent, yes. But every time I meet anybody in the street, no, nobody is particularly desperate to go into LGR at this particular time. Nobody is, well, I'm going to be street party saying, what a great result for North Warwickshire. Do I agree that some councils will support devolution? Well, devolution to a larger authority, isn't devolution supposed to be about taking it to no authorities, not bigger ones? And to what extent do you agree or disagree with the proposal that enables stronger community engagement? Really? I mean, if you look through the wrong end of a pair of binoculars, well, maybe. But anything which takes government further away from the electorate, creates bigger and bigger areas, does not encourage greater community engagement and does not necessarily represent the views of anybody. So on the face of it, the question is yes, given that this authority went through the whole issue and discovered, genuinely considered it, then I think on that level, yes. But on the honest level of do I think that the man in the street is desirous of this change, then clearly not.
Yeah, I mean, again, I totally agree with Councillor Simpson. I mean, all the the meetings, the groups, parish councils, whoever, whichever group we've been to see. And when I say we, I'm meaning the chief exec, been going around as a double act. We haven't come across anybody that's actually in favour of local government reorganisation. But as we point out, and as we know, I mean, most members in this chamber are not in favour of local government reorganisation either. But unfortunately, the status quo was not an option, so we have to, we have to put a proposal in. But as I said a few months ago, it's just that erosion of democracy, is it not? By a government who were hell bent on being a dictatorship. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, my understanding of the consultation was comparing single unitary with a 2 unitary option. So when you say, does this give something about better local democracy compared to the other one, is the way I interpreted it, which is why you more or less have to say yes if you're looking at the 2 one. But I mean, you're absolutely right that we obviously go to everything if we could. But I think it's important for people who are responding to the questionnaire that they realise that's what you're doing, because there's 2 separate sets of questions, one for single and one for double, and you have to compare it to, that's how you're expressing your preference. So we need to be really careful about how we answer those questions, otherwise we'll be ending up with something we don't want. Well, we don't want either, but the worst thing.
Jeffrey, perhaps I could make some amendments to questions 5 and 7, particularly as a preamble to say it's worth noting, because it is supported by the ORS survey, that this was the only district in which more people didn't want it than did. All the districts didn't want to get rid of their councils. So I think it's a list important bit by evidence rather than just us having a strong to say in question. I need to recall that actually most people in North Warwickshire don't want it, principally for that reason.
And recognise the strength of two-tier government.
Indeed.
Okay, so with those amendments, I don't see anybody, so I'll move it from the chair, seconded by Councillor Simmons. All those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. So now it's item number 10, which is the Spatial Development Strategies and Foundation Strategic Authorities. As the report sets out, the government is reintroducing spatial planning to cover areas wider than local planning authorities. As well as the as LGR consultation, the government is also consulting on what geography this spatial development strategy should cover. The report sets out that North Warwickshire has a functional planning geography based on Coventry and Warwickshire area, but also in common with Stratford District and the Greater Birmingham and Black Country housing market area. Members will be aware part of these areas is already covered by a strategic authority in the form of the West Midlands Combined Authority. This raises something of a dilemma with regard to the twin issues of which strategic planning area North Warwickshire should be in and which strategic authority. As a result, therefore, the leaders of all the councils in Warwickshire wrote earlier this month to the ministers asking for a meeting to set out the issues and to ask for decisions about how SDS geography and strategic authorities to be deferred until the government have decided on their preferred option for LGR, given that the decision could have a significant impact on the other issues. It's suggested, therefore, that in its response to this consultation, the council A confirms that the SDS and strategic authority must relate to functional economic geography rather than being a bureaucratic decision. B, SDS geography has to reflect at least the Coventry and Warwickshire functional economic geography. C, this area should not be placed with other areas where there is no or limited economic links. D, that decisions about SDS geography and strategic authorities be deferred until after the LGR decision for Warwickshire. And E, repeat our request for a meeting with ministers to explain the particular issues facing Warwickshire. And that meeting, which happened a couple of weeks ago, I mean, again, as I just said, it was a unanimous from the 5 district and borough leaders and also the leader of the county council to write that letter because it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I mean, I think it will be interesting if we get a meeting, whether the minister actually knows what's going on, because, given everything else we've asked, either the minister or government officials, they haven't got a clue what's going on, making it up as they go along. Particularly in this case, when they said they wouldn't be making any decisions around spatial strategies or devolute, etc., until they'd sorted out LGR, and now they've changed their minds clearly, and now they are consulting on it. So, I pity the opposition members, because I'm going to attack them again, because I mean it is farcical, because they just, as I said before, this government are making it up as they go along. They give the impression they've got no clue. They introduce a policy, and when local authorities ask questions around how that's going to work, they don't seem to have any answer at all. They change their minds on a whim, and it's just becoming. I was going to say becoming. It's become farcical, to be honest, and it is not fair on local authorities. But it's equally, it's having it's such a detrimental impact. We talk about that erosion of democracy, etc. These are people's lives. They're our residents, and it's having such an adverse impact on our residents, and I don't think that's right. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chairman. At a certain level, I think spatial development strategies are an essential. It's part of good government. But when I look at the effect that previous spatial development strategies had on Warwickshire, I really begin to doubt its effective merits. On top of that, the spatial development strategies all depend upon the ability and willingness of government to fund it. And as we know, they can't make their minds up whether they're going to fund works to be A5 or not. So without an effective supply of capital to make it work, it will continue to fail. And I also think it's more than slightly hypocritical that are talking about where do you want your regional spatial strategy to be at a time when major national infrastructure like HS2, all those decisions will be made by government. And even what you would have thought was relatively minor and not strategic decisions, like are you going to grant consent for 150 houses or an industrial unit, are going to be made by government. So in all honesty, you said earlier on in your comment that making it was going wrong. One of my favourite quotes from a Monty Python film. But I do feel like I'm living in a Monty Python film. It's a nonsense. There is no point responding to a government that says, what do you want to do about regional spatial strategy? Well, on the other hand, they're saying, well, actually, any significant decision we're going to make for you anyway. So, what the hell do you like?
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Not that I can say in the chain.
One of those evenings, isn't it? Okay, well, for what it's worth, I will move the recommendation from the chair, seconded by Councillor Osborne. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you.
I'm against.
Oh, thank you. Item number 11 is the corporate plan performance update. This report is the latest update for members on performance against the current corporate plan priorities. Members are asked to raise any issues on which further information is required. The report sets out a full list of KPIs that the council will collect, with members having been sent a link to the dashboard when this can be circulated. Members are asked to comment on the performance report, proposed KPIs. Members are also asked to consider how performance is reported to them. The options include continuing to report to the chief, to the executive board, or to report to individual boards their elements of the KPIs together with a copy of the overall report on performance against the corporate plan aims and objectives. Councillor Dirks.
My preference is for KPIs to be reported to individual boards and the executive. Or at the very least, individual boards and the option for executive board in KPIs.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons, did you indicate? Councillor Simmons and then Councillor Watts.
I agree with Neil on Councillor Dirks on that, in that yes to individual boards, but also so they can be a little bit agile. So when as emerging things come about, we can a performance indicator is only useful if it's telling you something. If it's telling you something's okay and it has done forever, there's a reason you want to look at something, one to sort of do something about and take action. And I think we need to perhaps be a little bit more active with some of the results and action planning is important out of not just seeing KPIs, just reporting that the answer is 42, if not always useful. It's actually what you're going to do with it as well. The one thing that I have to say, it drives me a bit mad when you get a report and you're looking at it online because you don't want to print it out and you have to turn your head to it. It's the wrong way. Can it be formatted so you can read it properly?
Is it wrong?
Is it just keeps
Turn the corporate plan the right way.
Yeah.
You do that. Go wrong again.
And that just drives me a little bit daft, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't want it to print it.
Thank you. Councillor Watson and Councillor Ridley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Surprised people to know I like a bit of technology, so I've had a look at the Power BI reports. True to cringing now.
Smiling.
I just wondered if there was a format because I looked through the reports and I think I can obviously see it's work in progress. We're going to start to build it up because some of the boards have got reports, some haven't. But I just wondered whether there was whether what we've adopted is an accepted format or whether that's just what we've gone with. And the reason I asked the question is because I've seen Power BI and it can be really informative and really good and really kind of like easy to read and easy to. I'm not sure ours is quite there yet because you click in and you've then got to work out and then you worked out you got to the top and move from right or left of the house, the home screen. But and some of the graphs are getting there. So I just wonder whether it's a recognised format or whether that's just where we've gone at the moment. I think it might be worth investing a bit of time at really looking at Power BI because it's an incredibly powerful tool about what makes it look really kind of iterative and kind of useful from a graphical perspective because it's like picture paints 1,000 words.
I've got Councillor Ridley and then Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. It's literally to say that Councillor Dervick's and Simmons are much more eloquent and obviously explained that it would be better if the KPIs came back to the board, to learn to board, so we can respond quicker. That so that's much better way of putting it than my earlier thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
And just wanted to check on Power BI that it's automatically picking the data up from data sets that the managers are using rather than having a small army of people, feeding it. And at the meeting, but we do need, we've been asking the leaders for some dashboards, and that might be a clue to how it could get a bit snappier and easier to use. But those of us that have been at the county, we use Power BI quite a lot. It is a powerful tool. You've got to get the data right, both in terms of what goes in and how it's out.
Chair, can I just comment for truly from the technical? So I think that's great. I think one of the things that we would suggest is that when it comes to boards, that we have a slightly different format of a report, that we have somebody actually on the machine, as it were, and showing you the various bits, pieces, and what years we do, where it's multiple years, and where your graphs and all that sort of thing can come on. I think that's a better presentation than trying to reproduce that on a blank piece of paper. And I think that will help people then navigate themselves because sure. My understanding is that it isn't directly from the data yet, but that's and just to reassure you, it's a very, very small army in terms of one person or two at best. So yeah, that's one of the things we need to do as we refine it to make sure it's optimal. Was there anything else?
No, just to trigger, Chair, just to say that we're refining the process and we are linking where possible. So some of it is, some of it isn't, but it's not onerous in that process. I mean, personally, where I'd like to see Power BI is that officers, we start and use that as our data as it comes to boards. It's single source of truth, so it's the same across the board. Members, you will be able to do the drill down. Members of the public won't. So it will just be at sort of that top level. So you'll be able to see more. Officers will be able to see more of their data. So, for example, if we use complaints and compliments as an example there, Chief Exec would be able to see who's complained and what about, whereas members of the public won't be able to see that level of detail. Just as an example.
Councillor Simpson and Councillor Watts.
Thanks, Darren. I don't mean to go back over the last 3 or 4 conversations we've had, but as you said, the government's changes to the planning system have materially changed what we can deliver and how we can deliver it. Do we not need to change some of this then to it? Because it talks about delivery of planning. We're not going to do it.
Well, Chair, we will update to the KPIs, so we will bring in KPIs around the level of delegation, for example, the point that was made earlier. I mean, I think our policies should still be our policies, and the narrative would then indicate where they're not able to be fulfilled and the reason why, and put it in those neutral terms. But again, it'll depend on what local plan we end up with. We'll end up with what we're able to get through the planning inspection and the
But Sean, our policies are predicated on having a green belt. People expect us to defend the vulnerability of the borough through our green belt policy. That is no longer possible.
Chair, perhaps we've already mentioned the dynamic process around agile. Perhaps as a local plan emerges and we know the extent to which we can do that, then there may need to be changes to the corporate plans we do.
Sure, we know that already. It's not green belt anymore. At best, it's grey belt. You've got one field coming out of the major conurbation areas. The rest of it is no longer green belt. And even if it is, if it's an application for more than 150 houses or a large industrial unit, not up to us.
Okay.
I
Councillor,
honestly think you've got to start being honest with people and saying, look, I'm totally sorry, but we cannot do this anymore. It's been taken out of the control of the local authority. I don't want to sit there as chairman of planning and have people attack us because 3/4 of the Greenbelt's got applications to develop significant housing on it, and we can't say no. You know?
well, as I say, I think you make a fair point. I've got Councillor Watson, Osborne, and then Barney.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, and I do share Councillor Simpson's frustrations because we spend a lot of time. I mean, anyone on planning will testify. We spend hours on planning. But what I want to say was actually the dashboards, because I want to get back to the Power BI and the data. There's a lot more information than just planning here. It's a lot more information, and I'm ever the optimist. Yeah, it's more than we had a month ago. Well, it's more than we had 2 months ago. So for me, on a positive note, I'll say there's information in there. Yes, it might not be live, it might not be dynamic at this stage, but it's better than we had before. So I would say let's keep pushing at it. Let's get the information. I do agree with Mr. Maxey to kind of think about actually if you put it on the screen as you're going through it, or click on the resources, etc., and go through your KPIs, and it's a much easier way of actually managing the meeting and seeing where you are against those strategic objectives. So I just want to say, because I know you can always, we'd always go and say, well, what we don't like about it, rather than sometimes go, actually, but it's better than we had 2 months ago. And thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Osborne, and then Barney.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Power BI, I've used it for a while. I've used it here. It does take a little while for things to funnel through it, to move through it. So it builds up that evidence pattern. So you can actually see something come out the other end. That is, you just have to wait for that to happen, unfortunately. With such a large data sets, it requires that. I think it's a massive step forward to where we were. I do think there's certain elements of it, like Councillor Simpson said, where the planning element of that is going to go awry. The thread of our risk matrix as well needs to run through in Power BI, because that risk matrix that we've got now is materially going to change with some of these decisions coming from national government that are going to affect what we are or aren't able to do within those planning frameworks, and any other things that they come up with is going to have a material effect on what we can actually deliver. So I think we need to push on with Power BI and use it as much as we possibly can. And I mean, when I say that, I mean us, so we can get the best value out of it.
Thank you. Councillor Barney.
Yeah, on the Power BI issue, I agree. And it's frustrating that things aren't going any faster, but I think with these types of things, I mean, this is what I do in my day job. It's most of the effort is behind the scenes, actually consolidating the data before you can even get to presenting it. And so I understand why it takes time. I have got quite a few notes on this, so I do apologise. But if I start with the more general things first, so I've got some generals and then some comments on specific items in it. I did make some comments on this last year, that the report as it's presented has got a number of documents which are just embedded within it. And when all we've got is a PDF, all we can see is an image of a document with no idea what's in it. I did raise it last year, and I think it was, I thought it had been promised that that was going to be changed, but some of those same ones that I raised last year are still in there again now. There is also a link which links to something which I don't have access to, let alone any members of the public. And again, that was raised last year. That's not changed. So, I mean, these are meant to be public documents. If there's anything in those documents which is needed to support the conclusions of it, really, they should be publicly available, either in the agenda pack or linked to somewhere on our external facing website where members of the public can see them. I have to say, I'm not entirely sure how some of those kind of ratings have been arrived at either. Some of them there's justification within the report, but other ones it's not clear how it's been arrived at. And I mean, if you look at this report over the last few years, ignoring new actions, every single item on here has been scored exactly the same for the last 3 years. And 3/4 of them were the same on the one before that as well. Which just strikes me as a bit odd if someone's actually gone through and properly rated these. There isn't the justification to support the ratings that have been given, basically. And I mean, the report itself is a bit of a mixed bag. There's bits of it that have got really good updates, and there's a lot of useful information in there. And then other bits in it, it just looks like it's been copied and pasted from last year, so there's no real update other than changing some dates on it. The general points. Oh, there was one other general point which, in last year's report from March, there were repeated comments in there that it was going to be updated in September, but I don't think it was. It certainly didn't come before this board, and I couldn't find any correspondence with that in either. So, and again, there were comments within this one that suggest it's going to be reviewed in September. So, can we please make sure that gets followed up? Okay, so then if I come to the more specific bits, page 177 on the medium-term fiscal strategy, I'm not quite sure how we're meant to draw anything from the figures there based on council tax collection, because last year we had targets and actuals for the year to date up to the end of February, and then this year, for some reason, we've only got targets for Q3, and they are drastically different from the targets for last year, and I've got absolutely no idea where they've come from. It's just, you can't really draw any conclusions from it because we're measuring something completely different. The next one, E02, it's rated as improving markedly, as it has done for the last number of years, but that's one of the ones weighed from what's in the report. Other than updating the date, there's no change. Everything is just copied over. So I really don't understand how we can score it as improving markedly from what is in the report. The next one, E03, which is developing our staff. I mentioned about last year's report promised that we were going to get an update in September. On this particular section on the staff survey, it did promise that the results of that survey would be shared shortly. And again, I never saw any of that. I don't know if that was shared with anyone else, but I certainly never saw it. So yeah, I mean, again, it promises that we're going to get some detailed reports on that shortly. So firstly, can we make sure it happens? And secondly, can we get some comparison with last year's figures that we never saw, please? And then, as I mean, some specific things within there. One of the questions about whether morale is good, I mean, it doesn't look great from those numbers, but the numbers don't actually add up. For every other example we've been given, it does add up to 100%, but the numbers we've been given for that one only add up to 80%. So I don't know what the other 20% thought. But also, I mean, we could make the assumption that that's all down to LGR, but I think really that does need digging into. I'm sure there is an element of that, but there could well be other aspects, and I think that's something we need to be trying to get on top of, certainly before September. What else was there? More embedded stuff. E04, it's not an embedded file, but there is a kind of table that's been embedded, but it's far too wide for the document, so it's just been truncated and I can't see what's in it. The action for resident survey. So there's a comment on there about the contact centre. We've engaged an interim contact centre manager to review the reception and customer service arrangements. So that's
Page on that.
sorry, that is T06, page 198. Sorry, it's about contact centre.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely in favour of that being reviewed. And I've certainly had comments from residents about the lack of access. The only thing that concerns me is that on last year's one, we also had a very similar commitment that a review on that was going to be launched within the next few months, and again, nothing happened. So I'm hoping this year is different, but please can we have an update on that reasonably soon? What else have we got? A lot of this is saying embedded PDFs. Yeah, I think that's about all I've got. Sorry, quite a lot there. I don't understand how you can draw many conclusions from large sections of it.
I'll certainly take you on board the comments that you've made. Where we're not comparing like with like. Secondly, that's an interesting one where on the staff morale doesn't add up to 100%. So saw the chief exec making copious notes. So hopefully,
And go through some of those now, so that council senators indicating as well.
That was just sneezing.
Oh, sorry.
I've developed a new allergy.
Yes, I mean,
Going to say to Councillor Barnett was the staff surveys through the Power BI, you can access it.
Oh, I missed that.
There's a lot more detail in it. We've just been looking at it under special sub.
I think this is one of the points in terms of that this is evolving as well, in terms of this is different to what we've had before. And yeah, so, I mean, some of the updates are slightly more longer term, and things like the transport strategy, for example. I've had to write the same rooming thing for 3 years because
Yes.
it's always just about to go to a county committee, and now it has. I think some of the issues around council tax was with the end of the financial year or quarter 3 previously. The embedded images, my apologies, we'll sort that out. But yeah, I mean, we can bring all the detail that you've mentioned in terms of the next steps. I think, having asked the question about the morale, I noticed that myself. Apparently, there's a neither up or down bit in the middle, which is where the missing 20% is.
Yeah, so I did wonder that, but every other question on
Yeah, I don't know why. We seem to give them 5 options as opposed to 4 on that one. So yeah, but they're still crunching the stuff on staff survey. So yeah, we'll certainly bring it to either September or November, depending on how it fits in the cycle. And I think part of the issue last year was November was very congested with LGR stuff, which is why I think we didn't bring it in exactly the same way as we did last year. But certainly the 6-month rhythm is what we intend to do. And you'll have that backed up with increasing KPIs. But as we've said, we can go into a bit of detail. I think those are all fine.
Thank you. Councillor Durkins.
Thank you. I'm not actually sure where this fits in, but these were comments from Councillor Reardon. First one was, do we have any plans for expanding promotion of energy saving? Because that fits in with the developing, support for vulnerable people. With the US-Iran war in mind, and news that fuel bills could rise over £300 over the summer. Do we have plans for potential fuel shortages, e.g. for bin collections? People will get very concerned about that if they don't have them. Movement to work. Have we got any outcomes for that? That is sort of one set of questions. And then it's again supporting people. Do we have a time frame for additional train services? We've got dangerous overcrowding sometimes at the current services. Can we have a map of connectivity in the borough for members to review? We've already mentioned service reception and having a report on that. That's it for this report.
Very briefly, if I can, Chair, I'm happy to go back to Councillor Murray. I mean, in terms of energy saving fuel shortage, obviously that's a developing situation. As you mentioned, the Financial Inclusion Partnership will be involved in that at some point. There is no fuel shortage at the moment. It's important to know, even though we're broadcasting not exactly live, but in public. I think so there is the same amount of fuel in the country that there's always been some kind of, but we do have fuel.
Do we have plans for it?
Monitoring on a regular basis, but also I think there is details about the additional trains, but particularly on the Southern Waterfall line. And I'll pick up quite what connectivity map you were talking about in terms of whether it's electronic connectivity or physical connectivity.
I've assumed that trains is or next question about trains. It's transport connectivity.
But Councillor has some more on that. But yeah, if we can get them moving on the North Warwickshire transport strategy, that would very much be Appendix A, I thought.
It'd be priority, wasn't it, at one point?
I mean, we had the first meeting in 2019, so it's
Early days.
not Russia's thing. No. They did go to their overview. They did go to an overview and speak to counties. I'm just waiting what the next stage is. But
Councillor Simmons, did you just indicate?
Not to be flippant, but I think they're probably relying on Rochester too. Sorry, we're just slightly delayed. No, the point I was going to make, we're just picking up what you said about connectivity. I was going to say, actually, there is a need to report back on connectivity because there is still huge gaps in phone signal and Wi-Fi. There's huge gaps across the borough in that, and where we have been given commitments that would be resolved, it hasn't. So I think we do need to push that again if that's what was meant by connectivity. It's what I would take to mean by connectivity, particularly because a lot of our more rural areas really struggle.
I think we talked about it.
When I ring Margaret, that's just to WhatsApp call me because she can't get any phone signal and there's parts of Coleshill within the town centre, call it that, that you just can't get any phone signal at all. So, and if you try making a call from Coleshill to Forlongley, you might as well not bother. So there's no connectivity across much of the borough, and actually that's the biggest issue for a lot of our residents. Is what we get complaints a lot about.
And referring back to the early corporate plan item, connectivity in terms of that data ride type of things, issues that changed. Yeah, and Councillor Wright was invited to a Warwickshire infrastructure 5G infrastructure board, but which stopped meeting, and so we've chased that, which is why they've reinvented the name slightly, but we're hoping that we will pick that work on. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what I was going to say. I mean, we did have one meeting at the council.
Was it what?
Absolutely, and they were waxing lyrical about 4G and 5G. It's somewhat ironic because the 3G signal now being turned off by most network providers. There's a great swathes, has already been mentioned, great swathes of our borough that wouldn't have noticed that 3G's been turned off because they never had it in the first place. And this is a major issue, absolutely major issue. So if we can encourage the county to, because apparently they're meant to have more sway than the boroughs and districts over network providers, etc. Because we're also told that the contracts have been awarded to, I think it was EE, because and that was for the emergency services, because emergency services need to contact each other, and they couldn't in large parts of the county, not just Warwickshire. And he'd been given a contract apparently to sort that out, which would have that obviously knock on effect, because if emergency services have got a signal, then everybody's got a signal. But that doesn't seem to have had any impact at all. So whether they haven't done it or not, I don't know. Councillor,
Sorry,
Yeah,
Chair,
so
if I could, previously been the portfolio for the economy within Warwickshire. Warwickshire have absolutely zero control over the network providers. And actually many people don't. What the specific thing around emergency services is that they have a priority channel. So effectively, in the event of a national emergency, other bits get effectively ramped down and they get greater bandwidth. So they will always have connectivity, whereas members of the public won't. But the problem that Councillor Simmons mentioned around connectivity is down to the network providers, and it's just based on economy, and it's down to based on what they're also, where they see revenue generated. And the final bit on that is actually what most people don't realise is that 5G, which is, so if they're switching off 4G in order to accommodate, switching off 3G in order to accommodate 5G on the masts, 5G is a data network. You are better off making a WhatsApp call than a traditional voice call. 5G is not set up for voice calling. It's set up for data calling. So that's why you can get through on WhatsApp and not on things. It's a data call rather than that. But it's an interesting thing because we had many meetings at county with the so-called network providers, and they were like, yeah, well, we'll do what we'll do. It makes money for us.
But people don't use phones. Phones.
No, exactly that.
Younger people.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not guided towards phone calls.
Exactly that. They don't talk by messaging and
You try and ring it.
it's all done by messaging. Yeah. Well, sorry, we don't talk anymore.
No, thank you. Yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Ross. The meeting I had was, I think you succeeded her. I had a meeting with Cam Core,
Yeah.
which she was in your position, I think.
Yeah, well, I took over and did it properly.
Yeah, absolutely. I will not forget the meeting because the first thing,
they broadcast.
No, but I'll tell Cam that.
it was interesting because the first thing she said when we got there was, well, I'm not going to mention the white elephant in the room, which was LGR, because that was when the county were trying to bring about LGR to us. Which I thought A, was not appropriate, and B, well, I won't say what I did, and won't say what I said in a public meeting.
It shows how long ago that meeting was then.
But that was, yeah,
First time.
but that's how long ago, absolutely, that was the thing, yeah, how long ago it was, and nothing's happened since. Okay, so that is the corporate plan performance update. I'll move the recommendation from the chair, seconded by Councillor Bell. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Item number 12. Let's get some good stuff, shall we? Item number 12 is the council grants update. So this provides an update on the council grant scheme, setting out the funding currently available and suggesting some changes to the scheme, mainly that the funds are be allocated to individual councillors rather than to the ward. Councillors within the ward can continue to work jointly on proposals, but the changes give members the flexibility to support separate projects if needed. Really finish on a high. Anybody got any comments or questions? Councillor Simmons.
There's that if you.
Seconded by Councillor.
No, sorry, I had a point I wanted to raise.
Okay.
So.
Sorry.
So it's suggested in here that we require 2 quotes for most scenarios, and I just think for smaller grants that might be a bit onerous. Whether we could put a lower limit on that.
Councillor Bell.
Respond on that,
Yeah.
because thank you, I asked Steph and Becky about this. And basically Steph will sort it out, basically. Well, actually, it's not going to be Steph, somebody else taking over the community grant.
It's, yeah, Rachel Hall, but
Oh, do you want to explain? Sorry.
so through you, Chair, the reason that we've added in 2 quotes is that now aligns with our procurement regulations. So it gives us a better defence, I guess. Sometimes quotes won't be necessary, so we have said it's 2 quotes unless you can justify that they're not needed. So things like you've got a yoga teacher and you want to carry it on, we wouldn't expect to go for 2 quotes. If you want to replace some windows, we would. So there is opportunities for exemptions when required. But we will do the chase of the quotes where appropriate, so it shouldn't be onerous on makers.
I was a little worried about onerous on the recipients, really, particularly if it's only like a couple £100.
And we'll guide people to the exemptions as well. So I think one of the examples we talked about before is if you want to give somebody the Girl Guides to do a camp, well, it's no good quoting. The Girl Guides them to the Girl Scout camp. So that we'll strongly recommend the exemptions are used for anyway.
Okay. So it was moved by Councillor Simmons, seconded by Councillor Bell. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item number 13 is the North Warwickshire Prosperity Fund. We'll recall that in the budget adopted by council last month, one of the main announcements was the creation of a £2 million fund for projects across the borough. Pleased, therefore, that this report brings the details of this scheme to members for approval. The scheme's criterion are intended to be as flexible as possible, with applicants asked to show how the project will promote the council's corporate plan themes. And if the scheme is agreed this evening, the council will then promote the fund to residents and stakeholders. Don't expect you to cheer, but really, this is good news, and this is all about, as I said, working with our communities and getting the best deal for them. Any comments, question, Councillor Barney?
Just a quick one. Is this going to involve some sort of panel deciding on the applications?
Yeah, the panel will be well, similar to the panel. So the members will be, the number of members will be the same. The difference, we will not have any external stakeholders on that. I made that executive decision, to be perfectly honest, because this is North Warwickshire Borough Council's money, and therefore it should be people from North Warwickshire Borough Council that decide where it goes. And I don't think we need input from outside, basically. Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that the UKSPF, the booklet that we got, well, more than the booklet, the actual book that we got that illustrated all of the projects really, really well, I thought. If we could carry that out again through this project, a similar thing, to see what our achievements are through it, I think that would be a good idea again to do the same.
Thank you. Yeah, it was good. I mean, that was a good evening, wasn't it? When we showcased, or some of the people that had received some of the grants showcased what they'd done and how the money had been spent. It was good. I saw, and was it Councillor Simmons or Councillor Bell? Councillor Simmons.
I didn't put my hand up, but I can ask a question.
Go on.
If we've been invited.
Did you sneeze again?
Try not to. We were just commenting, what's in section 4, recognisably home? What does that mean in this corporate plan criteria? Projects and those core objectives. What's that bit? So we've got sustainable growth, protected rurality, vibrant growth, sensible sense of place, recognisably home.
Generally, that is one of your corporate plan.
Yeah.
In
this context, is that?
Well, it was around things that emphasise that place that makes it different from, you have now left Birmingham or wherever you're in. It could mean a number of things. Heritage is a good one there, I thought. Or maybe a set out in the village that you're replacing certain things. I think it's a little LGR.
If there was something missing from that sentence.
There's a little LGR nod in that when we adopted that.
see,
We don't want to
yes.
swallow it by
Right,
business.
I stand now.
Okay, so I will move that from the chair then, seconded by councillor Ridley. Thank you. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Item number 14 is the minutes of the Senior Management Recruitment Subcommittee held on the 5th of February this year. Chair, seconded by councillor Simmons. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Item number 15, the exclusion of the public and press. Consider whether in accordance with section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by Schedule 12A to the Act. Moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in